A few hours ago, on the 10th of December, Australia became the first country in the world to ban social media for under-16s, after legislation passed in November 2024 came into effect. It bans access to 10 different platforms for roughly 2.5 million 8 to 15-year-olds in Australia, an estimated 86% of whom currently use social media, with the platforms facing fines of up to 49.5 million Australian dollars, equivalent to 33 million US dollars or 25 million pounds, if they don't stop under-16s from having accounts. So in this video, we'll take a look at Australia's world-first social media ban, how it will work, and what might happen next. Never miss an episode and always feel in the loop by subscribing and ringing the bell. Let's start by explaining the ban itself. The law, officially called the Online Safety Amendment Social Media Minimum Age Act 2024, aims to protect children from cyberbullying, grooming, and harmful content on social media. It also aims to reduce the negative impacts of social media on young people's mental health, which Australia's eSafety Commissioner, Julia Inman-Grant, says come from design features that encourage them to spend more time on screens. For context, the idea of a social media ban largely stems from research by the American social psychologist Jonathan Haidt, whose 2024 book, The Anxious Generation, argues that Gen Z's mental health struggles result from two social trends: the decline of free play, i.e. unstructured child-led playtime, and the rise of social media, which encourages addiction to smartphones. Haidt's research soon turned into a global campaign, and on the 8th of September 2024, Australian politician Peter Malinauskas, the Labour Premier of South Australia, whose wife had read Haidt's book, proposed a new law to ban children under 14 from accessing social media. 2 days later, on the 10th of September, the Australian federal government then announced its own legislation, and in November 2024, the Australian Parliament voted to ban social media for under-16s. Under the law, social media companies are required to take reasonable steps to prevent under-16s from accessing their platforms by using age assurance technologies, such as facial or voice recognition, or face a $49.5 million Australian dollar fine. The legislation applies to 10 different social media and live streaming platforms: Facebook, Instagram, Threads, TikTok, Snapchat, YouTube, X, Reddit, Kik, and Twitch, but doesn't affect children's platforms like YouTube Kids or Google Classroom, or messaging apps like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger, or Discord, GitHub, Pinterest, Roblox, Steam, and Steam Chat. The affected platforms also have to close existing accounts belonging to under-16s, a move that began last week when Meta, which owns Facebook, Instagram, and Threads, started removing the roughly 450,000 accounts on its platforms belonging to Australian under-16s. So will the ban actually work? Well, there are really two questions here. Firstly, will it actually prevent under-16s from accessing social media? And secondly, if it does, will it actually improve children's mental health? On the practical question, as teenagers themselves have pointed out, under-16s can easily find ways of circumventing the ban, such as through VPNs or parental assistance, with one 13-year-old telling the BBC she bypassed the face scan by holding a photo of her mum in front of the camera. Moreover, according to polling conducted for the Australian government in May, a third of Australian parents actually intend to help their kids get around the ban, and 72% of under-16s don't think it'll work. The age assessment technology being used by Meta and Snapchat isn't perfect either, as it reportedly struggles for people 2 to 3 years either side of 16. Crucially though, this age inference method was chosen instead of ID verification, which was unpopular with the public due to the risks involved with submitting personal information to social media firms. In fact, Australian Prime Minister Anthony Albanese has actually said that the law specifically prohibits platforms from requiring government-issued ID. In short, teenagers will find ways around the ban, which means it probably won't prevent 100% of under-16s from accessing social media. But campaigners argue that the main aim of the ban isn't necessarily to block every single teenager from being able to create accounts, but rather to establish a new social norm where at least a majority of under-16s aren't on social media. The hope here is that, over time, kids will either get fed up of trying to find ways around the ban, or at least spend less time on social media if fewer of their friends are on it. This is essentially a way of trying to reverse the so-called network effects of social media, i.e. the idea that as more users join a platform, the more useful, and therefore more difficult to leave, that platform becomes. While a recent ABC News survey found that 75% of under-16s don't plan to stop using social media after the ban, it could succeed if teenagers simply get bored of having to bypass the age checks every time. Moreover, YouGov polling from November 2024 suggests the Australian electorate are overwhelmingly in favour of the ban, with 77% supporting a ban on under-16s and 87% supporting stronger penalties for social media companies that don't comply. But the Australian government also risks legal challenges from both teenagers and tech firms. Last month, two 15-year-olds backed by the Digital Freedom Project launched a High Court challenge against the Australian government, arguing that the ban is unconstitutional as it infringes upon their right to free communication. While it's unlikely to reverse the ban, the protest does seem to reflect the views of most under-16s, 70% of whom don't think the ban is a good idea. Other, more serious lawsuits, though, could come from the social media platforms themselves, with Alphabet, which owns Google and therefore YouTube, reportedly considering a challenge. YouTube's opposition is to being classed as a social media platform, preferring instead to identify as a video sharing platform, which could give it grounds to challenge the ban. Finally, it's also possible that US President Donald Trump could take action against Australia, having previously threatened tariffs against countries he claims discriminate against US tech firms, and attempted to pressure both the UK and EU into rolling back their digital services taxes. Anticipating these possible challenges, last week Australia's Communications Minister Annika Wells told the BBC that the government would not be, quote, intimidated by big tech, adding that Australia was pleased to be the first, we're proud to be the first, and we stand ready to help any other jurisdictions who seek to do these things. Indeed, other countries are already following Australia's lead. Last month, Malaysia announced it would ban social media for under-16s from 2026. Denmark announced an agreement to ban social media for under-15s, and Norway is also taking steps to enforce a minimum age of 15. Similarly, at least 2 Labour MPs in the UK this month have called for a social media ban for under-16s, although back in February, the UK government responded to a petition saying it was not currently minded to support a ban for children under 16. Regardless, whatever happens next with Australia's social media ban will be watched all around the world and is sure to inform similar policies in other countries in future. While in Australia, politicians are moving to block usage of social media, in other countries, politicians are using it to campaign more than ever. We discuss that in the latest issue of our magazine, Too Long, which features an opinion piece all about the rise of the politician influencer. That issue of Too Long is now officially in stock too, with it focusing on the reshaping of the Middle East. In this magazine, we run through each country in the region to discuss how they're rewriting the next chapter of their story, from Qatar's growing global influence, who will govern New Gaza, if Iran could dash for a nuke, or how Lebanon can disarm Hezbollah. This is a region we know a lot of you are interested in, so this latest issue dives deep with our real thoughts on the next era of this often troubled region. Not only that, but we also have sections focusing on UK, EU and global news, including our full rundown of some of the biggest elections which happened around the world over the past year. There's also our interview with YouTube's Money and Macro on how to fix the EU economy, the rise of the politician influencer, and the new left emerging in the UK. As a special Christmas offer, we're offering you special gifts if you subscribe to Too Long. For instance, new subscribers can get a set of TLDR keyrings for free, our assembly-required desk calendar for just £2 more, our wall calendar or Brexit the colouring book for £3 more, or get your first copy entirely free if you buy it alongside assembly required. Find all of the options by clicking the link in the description, or as always, skip all of the physical stuff by picking up the digital edition today.